The night Warren Whitmore received the third death threat in as many weeks, he finally admitted to himself that arrogance might actually get him killed. He sat in his downtown penthouse, the letter crumpled in his fist, and stared out at the city lights below. 10 years ago, he had been a nobody with a dream of revolutionizing the automotive industry. Now, at 32, he owned the fastest-growing electric vehicle company in North America, and apparently that success had earned him some very dangerous enemies. The threats had started after his company announced a breakthrough in battery technology that would put several competitors out of business. His head of security had quit 2 days ago, claiming Warren was impossible to protect because he refused to change his routine or take the danger seriously. Warren had built his empire on calculated risks, but even he knew when the odds were stacked against him, which was why, at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, he was waiting for a bodyguard his attorney had personally recommended. The elevator chimed. Warren turned as the doors opened, expecting some 6'5" ex-military type with a buzz cut and an attitude. Instead, a woman stepped into his penthouse. She was maybe 5'7" in her boots, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and sharp gray eyes that swept the room before landing on him. She wore black tactical pants, a fitted jacket, and moved with the kind of controlled precision that told him she knew exactly what she was doing. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, extending her hand. "I am Aria Zimmerman. Your attorney hired me to keep you alive." Warren shook her hand, noting the firm grip and the calluses that suggested extensive training. "I was expecting someone different. I get that a lot." Her expression remained neutral. "Usually right before I prove why I am the best at what I do, which is close protection. I have 8 years of experience, former Secret Service, specialized training in threat assessment, defensive driving, and hand-to-hand combat. I have kept 3 Fortune 500 executives alive through credible threat situations, and I have never lost a client." She pulled out a tablet and handed it to him. "My credentials and references, call any of them." Warren scrolled through the information, impressed despite himself. Her record was impeccable. "Why did you leave the Secret Service?" "I wanted to choose my clients instead of being assigned to them." She met his eyes directly. "And before you ask, yes, I can do this job despite being a woman. If you have a problem with that, say so now and I will leave. But if the threats against you are real, you are running out of time to find someone else." He liked her directness. "The threats are real. Someone wants me dead or scared enough to back off from our new product launch. Then we start tonight. I need to see your schedule, all entry points to this building, your regular routes, and a list of anyone who might want to harm you." She walked to the window and frowned. "First thing tomorrow, we are putting film on these windows. You are too exposed up here. This is my home. And it is my job to make sure you stay alive in it." She turned back to him. "I know you are used to being in charge, Mr. Whitmore, but in matters of your security, I am in control. If you cannot accept that, this will not work." Warren studied her for a long moment. He had spent his adult life being the smartest person in every room, making every decision, trusting his own judgment above all else. The idea of ceding control to someone else, especially in his own home, went against every instinct he had. But the crumpled death threat in his pocket reminded him that this was different. This was survival. "All right, Miss Zimmerman, we will do this your way." He gestured to the living room. "Want some coffee? This is going to be a long night." The corner of her mouth quirked up in what might have been a smile. "Call me Aria. And yes, black, no sugar." Over the next 3 hours, Aria transformed his penthouse into what she called a secure living space. She checked every lock, every window, every possible entry point. She reviewed his security camera footage from the past month, made notes on his building's protocols, and created a detailed schedule of his movements. Warren found himself watching her work with growing respect. She was thorough, professional, and clearly brilliant at what she did. She asked questions that revealed an understanding of both security and human psychology, anticipating threats he had never considered. "You go to the same coffee shop every morning at 7, she said, looking up from her tablet. "Same route, same order. That stops tomorrow. I like my routine. Routine makes you predictable. Predictable makes you dead." She made another note. "We will vary your schedule, change your routes, use different exits. I will sweep your car every morning and evening. You go nowhere without me, understood? You are going to be with me constantly. That is what close protection means, Mr. Whitmore. I will be closer than your shadow until this threat is neutralized." She must have seen something in his expression because she added, "I know it is uncomfortable. Most people hate it at first, but you will get used to it. Call me Warren. If you are going to be my shadow, we should at least be on a first-name basis. Warren, then." She stood and stretched, the first sign of tiredness she had shown. "I am going to do a final perimeter check, then I will be in the guest room. Try to sleep. We have a busy day tomorrow." After she left, Warren sat in his living room, processing the upheaval of his life. 24 hours ago, he had been worried about quarterly earnings and production schedules. Now he had a bodyguard sleeping in his guest room and could not even go to his favorite coffee shop. But when he finally went to bed, he realized he felt safer than he had in weeks. The next morning, Warren woke to the smell of coffee and found Aria already up, dressed, and reviewing something on her laptop at his kitchen counter. She had a phone pressed to her ear, speaking quietly to someone about background checks. "Morning," he said, heading for the coffee maker. She ended her call and looked him over. "You usually run in the mornings." "How did you know that?" "I do my research." "We can still run, but we are taking a different route and I am coming with you." She pulled out running gear from a bag by the door. "Give me 5 minutes to change." They ran through a route Aria had mapped out the night before, avoiding Warren's usual path along the waterfront. She kept pace with him easily, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. Warren was in excellent shape, but Aria moved like running 6 miles before breakfast was just a warm-up. "Where did you train?" he asked when they stopped to stretch. "Army first, then Secret Service Academy, then private instruction from some people who cannot be named." She glanced at him. "You are in good shape. That will make my job easier if we need to move fast. Let's hope it does not come to that. Let's prepare like it will." Over the following days, Warren's life transformed into something he barely recognized. Aria was everywhere, a constant presence that was somehow both reassuring and unsettling. She drove him to his office in a different vehicle each day, varying the routes. She sat in on his meetings, stood outside his office door, vetted his appointments. She checked his food, his mail, everyone who came near him. His employees were curious about the striking woman who followed their boss everywhere. Warren kept the explanation simple. Security precaution, nothing to worry about. But he saw the speculation in their eyes, the whispers when they thought he could not hear. What surprised him most was how quickly he adjusted to Aria's presence. She was professional to a fault, maintaining clear boundaries, but she was not cold. She had a dry sense of humor that surfaced occasionally, and she was observant in ways that went beyond security. 2 weeks into her assignment, they were working late in his office when she set down a sandwich in front of him. "You have not eaten since breakfast," she said. "Your admin told me turkey and Swiss on wheat is your favorite." Warren looked up from his laptop, surprised. "You did not have to do that. Keeping you alive includes making sure you do not pass out from low blood sugar." She pulled up a chair on the other side of his desk, her own sandwich in hand. Besides, I was hungry too. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Warren asked, "You ever get tired of this, following people around, constantly waiting for something bad to happen?" Aria considered the question. "I get tired of the hypervigilance sometimes, but I like the problem-solving aspect. Every client is a puzzle, understanding their life, their threats, their vulnerabilities, figuring out how to keep them safe without completely destroying their quality of life." "How am I doing as a puzzle?" She smiled, a real one this time. "You are interesting. Most of my clients are either too paranoid or not paranoid enough. You are actually pretty balanced. You take the threat seriously, but you are not jumping at shadows. I have you to do that for me. That is literally my job description." She finished her sandwich and checked her watch. "We should wrap up soon. You have been up since 5 and you need sleep." "Yes, Mom," Warren said, but he was smiling as he saved his work. As the weeks passed, Warren found himself increasingly aware of Aria in ways that had nothing to do with security. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. The rare, brilliant smile when something actually amused her. The grace with which she moved, always balanced, always ready. He caught himself watching her more than he should, noticing details that were not relevant to their professional relationship. The fact that she hummed under her breath when she thought no one was listening. That she took her coffee black, but had a weakness for chocolate croissants. That she was fiercely loyal to the few people she cared about, based on the phone calls he overheard with her sister. This was dangerous territory, and Warren knew it. Aria was his employee, responsible for his safety. Any kind of personal relationship would compromise her ability to do her job effectively. So he kept his thoughts to himself, and maintained the professional distance she so carefully preserved. Then came the night that changed everything. They were leaving a charity gala where Warren had been honored for his company's environmental initiatives. Aria had been on edge all evening, uncomfortable with the large crowd and multiple entry points. She had insisted on leaving early, and Warren had agreed after fulfilling his minimum obligations. The parking garage was quiet, their footsteps echoing off concrete. Warren was tired, ready to go home, thinking about the presentation he had tomorrow. He did not see the man step out from behind a pillar, but Aria did. She moved so fast Warren barely processed it. 1 second she was beside him, the next she had shoved him behind a car and positioned herself between him and the threat. The man had a gun, but Aria was faster. She closed the distance before he could aim properly, struck his wrist with devastating precision, and had him disarmed and on the ground in seconds. 2 more men emerged from the shadows. Aria engaged them both, her movements fluid and efficient. A kick to one's knee, an elbow to the other's face. She moved like violence was a language she spoke fluently, every motion purposeful and controlled. Warren's training kicked in, and he called 911, giving their location while staying low behind the car like Aria had positioned him. The whole thing was over in less than a minute. All 3 attackers were on the ground, disarmed and neutralized, and Aria was barely breathing hard. But when she turned back to Warren, there was blood on her face. "Are you hurt?" Her voice was steady despite the adrenaline surely coursing through her system. She ran her hands over his arms, his shoulders, checking for injuries. "I am fine. You are bleeding. Just a split lip. Are you sure you are okay?" Her eyes searched his face with an intensity that had nothing to do with professional concern. "Aria, you are bleeding." She touched her mouth and looked at her fingers, seeming surprised by the blood. "I have had worse." Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Aria stepped back, her professional mask sliding back into place, but not before Warren saw something raw in her eyes. Fear. Not for herself, but for him. The aftermath took hours. Police statements, security footage review, paramedics checking them both over. The attackers were connected to a rival company that had lost a billion-dollar contract when Warren's battery technology made theirs obsolete. This was corporate espionage turned violent, and now it was a federal case. Through it all, Aria remained calm and controlled, giving her statement with professional precision. But Warren noticed how she stayed close to him, how her eyes kept finding him in the room as if reassuring herself he was still there and unharmed. It was after midnight when they finally made it back to his penthouse. The moment the elevator doors closed, Aria sagged against the wall, the adrenaline finally wearing off. "Hey," Warren said softly, catching her elbow. "You okay?" "I am fine." But her voice was shakier than he had ever heard it. That was closer than it should have been. "I should have spotted them sooner, should have insisted we leave through a different exit. You saved my life. I almost got you killed. That is my job, Warren, to anticipate threats before they get that close." She pushed off the wall as the elevator reached his floor, her jaw tight. "I need to run a full security review, figure out how they knew we would be there. What you need is to sit down and let me clean that cut." Warren guided her into his penthouse, his hand on her lower back. She did not pull away. "Medical kit, my room, but I can handle it myself." "I am sure you can. Humor me anyway." She looked like she might argue, but something in his expression must have convinced her. She retrieved the medical kit and sat on his couch while Warren examined her split lip under better light. "This might sting," he said, dabbing antiseptic on the cut. Aria did not even flinch. "I have been hurt worse in training exercises. That does not make me feel better." Warren worked carefully, aware of how close they were, how intimate this felt. "You scared me tonight. I scared you. You are the one who almost got shot. And you are the one who threw yourself between me and a gun without hesitation." He met her eyes, his hand still cupping her jaw. "Do you have any idea how terrifying that was to watch?" Something shifted in her expression. "That is my job. Is it? Or would you have done that anyway?" The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Aria's breath caught. "Warren, we should not. I know we should not. Trust me, I have been telling myself that for weeks." His thumb brushed her cheek, careful of her injury. "But watching someone try to kill me tonight made me realize that life is too short to ignore what I feel." "What you feel?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I am pretty sure I am falling in love with my bodyguard. Which is probably the worst possible thing that could happen, professionally speaking." Aria closed her eyes, conflict clear on her face. "I could lose my license. There are rules about personal relationships with clients. And more importantly, I cannot do my job effectively if I am emotionally compromised. I know. And if you tell me to forget I said anything, I will respect that." Warren pulled back, giving her space. "Your professionalism has never been in question, Aria. You have been nothing but exceptional." She opened her eyes, and Warren saw his own feelings reflected back at him. "I cannot stop thinking about you. When those men came at us tonight, for just a second, all I could think was that if anything happened to you, I would not be able to bear it." She stood abruptly, pacing away from him. "But this cannot happen. Not while I am working for you. The moment I let my personal feelings interfere with your safety, I become a liability instead of a protection. So what do? We do nothing. We maintain professional boundaries. And when this threat is resolved and you no longer need a bodyguard, then maybe we can revisit this conversation." She turned back to him, her expression resolute despite the emotion in her eyes. "But right now, keeping you alive is the only thing that matters. Can you accept that?" Warren wanted to argue, wanted to tell her that life was too unpredictable to wait for perfect circumstances. But he also respected her integrity, her commitment to her professional standards. It was part of what he loved about her. "I can accept that," he said finally. "But I am not going to pretend I do not feel what I feel. I am not asking you to." She moved to the door, pausing at the threshold. "I am just asking you to let me do my job. Let me keep you safe. Everything else can wait." After she left, Warren sat in his empty living room and tried to reconcile the competing desires warring inside him. He wanted her safe, wanted her close, wanted her in ways that had nothing to do with security and everything to do with the way she made him feel more alive than he had in years. But he also respected her enough to give her the space she needed to do her job without compromise. So he would wait. And in the meantime, he would work on resolving this threat so they could both move forward. The investigation moved quickly after the attack. With 3 suspects in custody and security footage from the garage, federal agents were able to trace the conspiracy back to executives at Prometheus Motors, Warren's biggest competitor. Within 2 weeks, arrests were made and the threat was officially neutralized. Aria remained his bodyguard throughout, professional and vigilant. But Warren noticed the small changes. The way her eyes lingered on him a moment too long, how she stood just a little closer than necessary, the careful way she avoided touching him as if she did not trust herself. The tension between them built like a gathering storm, unspoken but impossible to ignore. Finally, on a Friday afternoon 3 weeks after the attack, Aria walked into his office and closed the door behind her. "The FBI just called," she said, her expression neutral but her eyes bright. "The threat has been officially cleared. Prometheus executives are facing federal charges and their entire board has been replaced. You are safe." "That is good news." Warren set down his pen and stood, his heart suddenly racing. "So your job here is done?" "Yes." She stayed by the door, her hands clasped in front of her in a posture he recognized as her falling back on training. "I will submit my final report to your attorney this afternoon and return the company security passes tomorrow." Just like that, just like that. But she did not move toward the door. "Aria." Warren walked around his desk, closing the distance between them slowly, giving her time to object. "Your contract is over. You are no longer my bodyguard." "No," she agreed softly, "I am not. So there are no professional boundaries anymore. No rules about personal relationships with clients. Technically, you are still my client until I submit the final paperwork." Warren stopped inches away from her, close enough to see the pulse jumping in her throat. "How long does paperwork take?" "It could take a while." The corner of her mouth quirked up. "I am very thorough. One of the many things I love about you." Her breath caught at the word love. "Warren, if we do this, there is no going back. Everything changes. I know, and I have never been more certain of anything in my life." He reached up slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and cupped her face in his hands. "I am in love with you, Aria Zimmerman. I love your strength and your integrity and the way you take your coffee black. I love how you bite your lip when you are thinking, and how you always check the exits when you enter a room. I love that you are the most capable person I have ever met, but you still hum to yourself when you think no one is listening." Aria's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I have never felt this way about anyone. It terrifies me. Me too. But the good kind of terrified, the jumping off a cliff kind," he smiled. "And I have it on good authority that calculated risks are kind of my thing." She laughed, a sound of pure joy that transformed her face. "You are sure about this? Because once I let myself love you, I am all in. That is just who I am. All in sounds perfect to me." Aria kissed him first, rising up on her toes and closing the final distance between them. The kiss was everything Warren had imagined and more. Fierce and tender, certain and exploratory, the culmination of weeks of denied attraction and growing feelings. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Aria rested her forehead against his. "This is probably going to complicate your life significantly." "My life needs complicating. It has been far too predictable lately." She laughed again, and Warren decided that making her laugh might become his new favorite occupation. "What now?" "Now I take you to dinner. Someplace nice where I am not worried about someone poisoning my food and you are not scanning for threats. Just a normal date." "I do not know if I remember how to do normal. We will figure it out together." Warren laced his fingers through hers, marveling at how right it felt. "But first, about that paperwork. Any chance you could be less thorough than usual? For you. I suppose I could rush through it just this once." They left his office hand in hand, and if his employees noticed, Warren could not bring himself to care. For the first time in months, he felt like he could breathe freely, like the weight of constant threat had finally lifted. That evening, they went to a small Italian restaurant Aria had been wanting to try. Without the pressure of security concerns or professional boundaries, they talked for hours about everything and nothing. Warren learned about her childhood in Colorado, her decision to join the Army, the sister she adored who taught elementary school. Aria heard about his early struggles to get funding for his company, his parents who had believed in him when no one else did, his dream of making sustainable transportation accessible to everyone. "You really believe you can change the world," Aria said, watching him over her wine glass with something like wonder. "Someone has to. Might as well be me." Warren reached across the table and took her hand. "Although I am finding that my priorities have shifted lately. Changing the world seems less important than building a life with someone who matters. You can do both. I would never ask you to give up your work. I know you would not. That is part of why I love you." He ran his thumb across her knuckles. "But I also know that I have been married to my work for the past 10 years. I am ready for something more now. I am ready for you." Aria squeezed his hand, her gray eyes soft. "We should probably take this slow. We barely know each other outside of a crisis situation." "That is fair. Although I feel like I know you better than people I have known for years." "High-stress situations have a way of revealing who people really are," she smiled. "But yes, we can take it slow, date properly, see how we fit into each other's regular lives." They tried to take it slow. They really did. But when two people have spent weeks dancing around intense attraction and deep emotional connection, slow becomes a relative term. Within a month, Aria had moved most of her things into Warren's penthouse. Within 2 months, Warren had rearranged his entire schedule to accommodate her work assignments, flying to meet her when she had to travel for new clients. Aria continued her bodyguard work, though she was careful about which assignments she accepted. Warren supported her completely, understanding that her career was as important to her as his was to him. They figured out how to balance 2 demanding careers with a growing relationship, learning each other's rhythms and needs. 6 months after their first kiss, Warren took Aria to the coffee shop he used to visit every morning before she entered his life. They stood in line together, her hand in his, and he realized how much had changed. He was more cautious now, more aware of his vulnerability. But he was also happier than he had ever been. "You are thinking hard about something," Aria observed as they waited for their order. "Just reflecting on how different my life is now compared to 6 months ago. Better different, even though you cannot have your precious routine anymore." She was teasing, but there was genuine curiosity in her question. Routine was just a way to maintain control, but I have learned that some things are worth losing control over. He pulled her close, not caring about the other customers. "You are worth it. We are worth it." Aria kissed him, soft and sweet, and Warren felt the same surge of rightness he felt every time she was in his arms. This was what mattered. Not quarterly earnings or production schedules, but this woman who had crashed into his life and changed everything. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too. Always." A year after Aria first walked into his penthouse, Warren took her back to that same spot. He had planned this carefully, wanting everything to be perfect. The windows were now properly secured, the security system upgraded to Aria's exacting standards. But more importantly, it was where they had started, where she had first shown him what it meant to trust someone completely. "Why are we standing in your living room?" Aria asked, confused. They had just returned from dinner, and she was still in the blue dress that made her eyes look like storm clouds. Warren took both her hands in his and felt his heart race with nervous excitement. "Because this is where I first realized you were going to change my life. I just did not know how much yet." "Warren, what are you doing?" "Something I should have done months ago." He released her hands and dropped to one knee, pulling the ring box from his pocket. "Aria Zimmerman, you came into my life to protect me, but you ended up doing so much more than that. You challenged me, supported me, loved me even when I was stubborn and difficult. You made me want to be better, not just at business but at life, at being human." Tears were already streaming down Aria's face, her hands covering her mouth. "I know we said we would take it slow, but I have never been more certain of anything. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to hear you humming when you think I am not listening. I want to argue with you about security protocols and watch you eat chocolate croissants and grow old with you." He opened the box, revealing the ring he had spent weeks choosing, a simple platinum band with a gray diamond that matched her eyes. "Will you marry me?" "Yes." The word came out choked with emotion. "Yes. Absolutely yes." Warren slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then stood and pulled her into his arms. Aria kissed him with all the fierce tenderness he loved about her, and Warren felt something settle deep in his chest. This was home. Not the penthouse or the company or the success, but this woman in his arms who had taught him what it meant to truly trust someone. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. Aria's sister served as maid of honor and cried through the entire ceremony. Warren's best man was his college roommate who had believed in him when his electric vehicle dreams seemed impossible. The security was naturally excellent, with several of Aria's former colleagues ensuring the event went smoothly. But Warren barely noticed any of that. His entire focus was on Aria as she walked down the aisle, stunning in a simple ivory gown, her eyes locked on his. When she reached him and took his hands, he felt the same surge of rightness he had felt every day since she entered his life. "I love you," he whispered as the officiant began speaking. "I love you too," she whispered back. "Always." They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising partnership and support, love and loyalty, adventure and stability. When the officiant pronounced them married, Warren kissed his wife with all the joy and certainty in his heart. 2 years into their marriage, Warren came home to find Aria sitting on their couch, a strange expression on her face. She had cut back on her bodyguard work, taking only occasional consulting jobs, and he had been worried about her adjusting to a slower pace. "Everything okay?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. "Come sit with me." She patted the couch beside her, and Warren noticed she was holding something in her hands. His heart started pounding as he recognized the shape. "Is that what I think it is?" Aria nodded, tears spilling over. "I am pregnant. We are having a baby." Warren pulled her into his arms, his own eyes burning with emotion. They had been talking about starting a family, but he had not realized how much he wanted it until this moment. "We are having a baby," he repeated, awe in his voice. "I know we said we would wait another year, but apparently our child has your impatience." He laughed and kissed her, tasting salt from both their tears. "I cannot wait to meet them." "Are you scared?" "Terrified," Aria admitted, "but the good kind of terrified, the jumping off a cliff kind." Warren smiled, recognizing his own words from years ago. "We will figure it out together, just like everything else." And they did. Their daughter, Emma, was born on a rainy spring morning with Aria's strength and Warren's determination already evident in her lusty cries. Warren held his daughter for the first time and felt his heart expand in ways he had not known were possible. This tiny person, half him and half the woman he loved more than anything, was his whole world now. Aria watched him with soft eyes as he cradled Emma. "You are already a natural." "We are going to be amazing at this," Warren said with certainty, though he had no idea what he was doing. Together, they were amazing at it, though there were certainly sleepless nights and moments of doubt. Warren adjusted his work schedule to be more present, realizing that success meant nothing if he missed his daughter's childhood. Aria embraced motherhood with the same intensity she brought to everything else, though she struggled initially with the loss of control that came with a newborn. But they figured it out, supporting each other through the challenges and celebrating every milestone. Emma's first smile, her first word, her first steps. Warren watched his wife sing lullabies to their daughter and fell in love with her all over again. 3 years after Emma was born, they had a son they named Owen, who had his mother's gray eyes and a calm temperament that balanced his sister's fierce energy. Their family was complete, chaotic and beautiful, and everything Warren had never known he wanted. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Warren and Aria stood on the balcony of their home, watching the sunset. Emma and Owen were inside with Aria's sister, probably destroying something or covered in paint. Warren could hear their laughter through the open door and smiled. "Happy anniversary," Aria said, leaning into his side. 10 years. Can you believe it? Sometimes it feels like yesterday that you walked into my penthouse to save my life. Other times it feels like you have always been here." Warren wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her close. "I would not change a single thing. Not even the part where someone tried to kill you, especially not that part. It brought me you." Aria turned in his arms, her gray eyes reflecting the sunset. "You know what I realized recently? I spent my whole career protecting people, keeping them safe. But you are the one who saved me. I did not do anything. You loved me. You saw past the walls I built and loved me anyway. You gave me a life I did not even know I wanted, a home, a family, someone to come home to." She touched his face tenderly. "I spent so long guarding everyone else's heart, and then you came along and guarded mine." Warren kissed her, slow and deep, pouring 10 years of love and partnership and gratitude into it. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "We guard each other's hearts. That is what love is." "That is what love is," she agreed softly. Behind them they heard a crash followed by Emma's voice saying, "It was not me." Warren and Aria looked at each other and laughed, the moment broken but not lost. "Should we go save your sister?" Warren asked. "Probably. But give me one more minute here with you." Aria kissed him again, brief and sweet. "I love you, Warren Whitmore. Thank you for being impossible to protect and falling in love with me anyway." "Best decision I ever made," Warren said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. They went inside together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever chaos their children had created. Their house was filled with noise and laughter and the beautiful mess of a well-lived life. Warren had built an empire, changed an industry, achieved success beyond his wildest dreams. but none of it compared to this. Coming home to the woman who had saved his life in more ways than one, surrounded by the family they had built together. He had hired Aria to guard his body, but she had ended up guarding something far more valuable. And in return, he had spent every day since making sure her heart was safe in his hands. That was the real success story, the one that mattered more than any business triumph or financial achievement. He had found love when he least expected it, with a woman who had walked into his life to protect him and ended up becoming his entire world. Years later, when Emma asked how they met, Warren would tell her the story of how her mother had saved him from bad guys. Aria would roll her eyes and add that her father was the stubbornest client she ever had. And Warren would pull his wife close and say that hiring her was the smartest business decision he ever made, because she ended up being his best investment. But that was all in the future. For now, on their 10th anniversary with their children laughing and their life full and rich, Warren and Aria simply held each other and watched the sunset, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. That was their promise, their foundation, their forever. The bodyguard had guarded his heart, and he had guarded hers right back. And they lived happily, messily, beautifully ever after.